All right, thank you for joining us on another episode of the Coaching Excellence Podcast. I'm Coach DuWayne Campbell, and today I will be talking with Coach Corey Bennett. He is the current head coach of two of the larger programs in terms of track and field in Jamaica, both at Hydel High School and Calabar High School. Coach Bennett is one of the more successful track and field coaches currently in Jamaica, and we are going to be picking his brain a little bit on issues regarding student athlete and coaching student athletes. Coach Bennett, thanks for joining.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, Coach.
All right, Coach. Tell me a little bit about how you got involved with coaching, and also what your journey has been like as a coach.
Well, I'm from a family of educators. My mother was a teacher. Was former principal at Wilmer's Prep and started her own school at Hydel. And I think that coaching for me was just a branch off almost from teaching. I started coaching when I was in college. I went to school in New York, Long Island University, where the coach that we had was a predominantly middle distance type of coach. I was more involved with sprints and jumps and hurdles and stuff like that. And at college, when I was in college, he wanted to always coach us as middle distance athletes. And, so he didn't even understand the proper, way to change the batons, even a sprint relay and stuff like that. And my coaching journey kind of started from then. I used to set up all our teams in college, pretty much, or give some assistance to it and go through the relay changes. It kind of blossomed from I was in high school. I did the multi-events in high school, which in my day, which is way back when we did the heptathlon, now it's the decathlon. And so I had a good appreciation of many different disciplines in track and field. I just kind of worked well that when I came back to Jamaica in about 1996, I joined the school where my mother owns, Hydel. I just kind of blossomed from there where I just went to give my expertise at the time with the prep school, the younger age group. I just kind of set some philosophies and some groundwork as to how I believe we could have done a lot better. And after a while, we became pretty dominant at that prep school level. Came off to the high school where, in 2009, we applied just to be a part of ISA. We got some rejection at first, but after a while, we were accepted to be a part of the 2010 champs, where we took 5 girls, 4 under 13 girls, and 1 girl who was there. She was just probably about 14 or 15. I became 11th at champs that year, scoring 48 points. I'll never forget. Fast forward to 2022, our squad initially started out at about almost 100 girls. And that was just, for various reasons, it's dwindled down to about 35, 40 girls, which we took the champs. It's been a great journey. I mean, I think for me, one of the blessings and one of the great things is to see these girls transition into women who can make a livelihood from track and field and from education through university colleges. And yeah, that's pretty much, in a nutshell, my journey into coaching and track and field to date.
Okay, awesome, Coach. You've had one of the more unique experiences of being able to coach your own children. I know you have 2 sons, one that is off in college now, and another one that is still under your roof. How have you found it in terms of balancing the coaching aspect with the parenting aspect?
I mean, coaching my own 2 sons has been my biggest challenge. It's the toughest thing I've ever had to do. It's harder to coach my own 2 sons than to coach 100 boys at Calabar or 50 girls at Hydel. Because it's hard to differentiate a lot between the emotions of a coach and that of a parent. And I'll never forget there are many instances where, you know, I remember traveling overseas with my younger son and having to tell him that he qualified as a ninth best and he just missed the top 8. I mean, an average athlete, I probably could relate it easily. To my own son with the emotions and the tears, oh Lord, it was tough. And it's been through to this day, when up to even last season, my younger son, you know, had a major injury where his knee cup pretty much flew up into his thigh bone or into his thigh or quad muscle. It flew off the bone, you know, and needed surgery. And 4 days later, my older son had an accident where he broke his bone in his foot. So that was tough. You know, that was a tough deal as a coach and as a parent. I felt like I wanted to give up coaching track and field, period, because I know these boys really loved the sport, really wanted to do the sport, and just was not able to through injuries. So it was hard for me to, at that time, look at an athlete who was not injured, who was wasting time. So it was tough. And it kind of formed my whole culture of, I have no time to waste persons who really want to do it, especially when they're healthy. So yeah, it's been tough. It's been rough. It's been a rough thing, but you know, thank God I'm able to see my son go off to college. You know, he's in South Carolina, and my younger son is still recovering from his operation and surgery last year. Back into doing some track and field training now. So it has been tough. But the joy is when you see them enjoy the sport and get what they're looking for from the sport.
Awesome, coach. We, meaning the rest of us coaches and also track and field fans in Jamaica, have been able to watch you develop that program at Hydel secondhand, looking at the results, seeing how the girls have performed throughout the years, and seeing how successful that program is developing, and not only the success that the girls get, but the way in which the manner of performances in terms of how they perform and the kind of grit and determination that they show when they're out there on the competition field. How is it that you have managed to develop that capacity of grit and that culture of grit at Hydel?
Well, you know, thanks for those kind words. It has been tough. Again, you know, we do with such limited resources. You know, I've been asked this question a million times. I'm not even sure, but I think we just pay attention to a lot of details. Technique is very important in an athlete doing well in any sport, any event. And I think we've tried to pay attention a lot to just the details of the technique that is required to do well. Let's take, for example, in sprinting. It's hard for you to sprint when everything is behind the body. You know, for efficiency's sake, you know, you're gonna have to get the legs in front of the body, especially when you're in the acceleration, or should I say into the running phase. Just how the feet are angled to the ground, the position of the hip, and just general technique in sprinting, you know, general technique in jumping, in hurdling. Things have to be aligned to, you know, biomechanically, and I think we pay a lot of attention to that. We just try to make sure that the body is to me, it's always best to undertrain than to overtrain. We don't overtrain athletes. We give frequent breaks. We think it's important for the athlete to, you know, recovery is important just as much as it's, you know, it's important to training. A lot of coaches tend to just want to work hard and hard and hard. And yeah, it's good to work hard, but it's good to work smart. And also it's important to understand that they're not professional athletes and they are not probably well fed and well taken care of as a professional athlete. And that's, you have to take these things into consideration and understand the age group that we're dealing with. But yeah, I think I've been blessed, you know, with a good structure around me as well. I think we've had some very good coaches around me at Hydel and even right now at Calabar, persons who are willing to share the vision. And I think that I have the right personalities around me who I think can get the job done or dreams realized. But yeah, I think at Hydel, we really, I convert a lot. I tend to convert athletes a lot. I think I've been given, I want to say, a gift to figure out what events are best for the athlete. And so far, I think I've had some level of success with that. But thanks to the athlete, they've listened well. And hopefully I've got my points across enough, and I believe I've taught enough persons that they have learned enough to do well. And I give God thanks for that.
Coach, you talked a little bit about technique and the importance of technique in the student athlete success. I know it can be a little bit difficult on athletes to stay focused on, being focused on the technical changes and making sure that they always try to execute that. How is it that you're able to get your athletes to stay focused on proper technical execution?
Well, one of the first things I take out of the equation is the element of trying to hit times or trying to hit distances. I focus mostly on execution, and I believe once you focus less on winning and less on trying to achieve certain times, then the athlete can now have a relief from the burden of just trying to win at all costs and win at all times. I think, our focus is mostly on let us execute the right way, and then let's talk about your execution after the event. Once you do that, then the athlete feels less pressure in trying to win, but mostly and more trying to execute properly. Up to recently, we've had a young lady who I was blessed to coach, Brianna Liston, who we just focus on her technique and her execution, less on her times. Because most times, and I tell athletes all the while that don't run down times, pay attention to your technique and your execution. Times will come. And that's what we've been, able to focus on, and thank God we were able to get her into being a better athlete just by focusing on her technique and her execution. So yeah, I mean, once you take out the element of winning, it's okay not to win, but execute properly, and we're comfortable with that. I think coaches sometimes pay too much emphasis on winning and just run fast. Fast time will come once execution is improved, and yeah, we just take out the element of just trying to win at all costs. So yeah.
And coach, in terms of developing technique, what are some of the tools or strategies that you have come up with or that you use in terms of developing that technical eye as a coach to be able to see what the athlete is doing and what changes you need to make to the technique?
I think all coaches should, but I've said it before, all coaches should be a doctor of track and field. You first of all have to make your own diagnosis. You have to assess the problem. It's not a one size fits all kind of fix. But there are many things that you can pass through the eye test, and the eye test tells you a lot. And the eye test tells you, oh, young man, you're flat-footed. You'll never be able to hurdle properly being flat-footed. You'll never be able to sprint flat-footed. You can't have your shoulders up into your neck and be able to run relaxed. I mean, sprinting is best done relaxed. So there's things you look at just from the eye test. Without even looking at the clock, you can know when somebody is really running properly, running fast, just by the eye test and waiting for the strike in the ground. And let's show it to the long jump. I had a girl who, I mean, when you give her drills, you couldn't find a girl who was more powerful than her in terms of just pull off the ground. But in the long jump, she could not come off the ground. And then I realized just by observing, she was planting from the ball of her foot. So she wasn't able, I mean, in long jump, you have to kind of have a more flat-footed plant to get up off the ground. She was more planted from the ball of her foot, and therefore the leverage was affected. You have to just keep. I mean, through sport and through experiences, it teaches us a lot. Even sprinting, the toe should generally pull up to the shin. Pretty much just trying to go and pop in a more power back action. Persons who point their toes down won't get that power back action. And there's just many things that we look at. Again, point back to running behind the body in a butt kick action is not good sprinting technique. You have to slow the athlete down. You really have to do a lot of drills, slow them down until they get the drills proper, and then you can actually speed them up after that. So you have to do drills slowly first before you can speed it up. But drills are important to technique. And there's a lot of rehearsal of drills is really important to technique. And repetition, the coach have always pointing out, hey, stay tall, get your knees up, get your toes in front of the knee. Just rehearse so that it becomes a part of the execution just by listening. But a lot of repetition, a lot of talking through. Don't always stop the athlete when they're not doing well. Allow them in their own technique, but make small adjustments. I think that has worked for me for over the years.
Awesome, coach. You're dropping a lot of bombs right there. All right. So there are a lot of different aspects to sports. You know, there's the economic side of it. Obviously, it's a business now for a lot of people. There's a social side of it in terms of what it can do for the athlete in terms of giving them an outlet outside of their school and their community life. But there, I feel sometimes from the side of the spectator, they get to see the exciting performances and they get wrapped up in it, you know, the unscripted drama and all of it. But we just want to hear from you in terms of your own thoughts as sports as a tool for helping to develop young people in terms of their holistic development, moving through adolescence and into adulthood.
Well, sport in general, I believe that anything you spend so much time doing should be able to help you through life. I think, you know, if you're going to spend at least 2 hours every afternoon, 5 days a week, or sometimes 6 days a week, for the better part of a year, and for an athlete trains, I would say up to about probably 6 months, probably 7 months per year. That's a lot of time. Now, if you're gonna use all that time to not get something out of it, and whether it is to go straight to a professional or go to college and where they pay for your education, then something is wrong with your thought process. I think athletes should be able to get as much out of the sport as they are planning to put into the sport. And I've spoken about this all the time. Whatever you reap, you're gonna sow, or sure, the other way, whatever you sow, you're gonna reap. But I just generally believe that if you're going to invest all that time in any sport, whether it's football, cricket, you know, swimming, pool, whatever it is, you must be able to think of getting an education out of it. And if not an education, you must be eventually getting some money out of it to make a livelihood. But yeah, I think that back in the day, I was all for, hey, you need to get an education. Education is good, and education is the ultimate, but there is now the new way of looking at it where if I can get a career out of the sport, leaving high school, like LeBron James did and like Kobe Lawrence, Kobe Bryant did, straight out of high school as an NBA professional. Why can't a track athlete? You know, you still have the ability to go back to school while being a professional. Because most persons go to college to get a degree, to get a job, to get paid. But if you can get paid straight out of high school, as long as it's being managed properly and monitored properly, and you're still being able to get that degree even while being a professional, then I'm all for that. Sometimes you go to the NCAA system, and when you leave school, you leave with nothing. So I believe it is important that as long as you have the right goals in mind and you're the right direction, then I have no problem with you setting up yourself as a high school, leaving high school, getting paid as a career to do track and field.
All right, Coach. Awesome. I have another important question in terms of the development of young people through sports and what it is that they are able to recover from sports for all that time investment, in terms of what sports offers in terms of resilience, meaning mental resilience or mental toughness. How important is that to the success of the student athlete?
It's probably everything that you cannot touch. It is that factor that sometimes it's hard to even coach. I'm not to call name, but I don't think Asafa was a mentally tough athlete. Having the stick-to-itiveness, the mental fortitude, as you mentioned, just that toughness to keep going on and pushing on, and even when things are not looking bright or prosperous, just to keep pushing on, even in a race itself. You may hit a hurdle in a hurdles race, and you want to stop. Just the mental edge and the toughness to keep pushing on and carrying on can mean everything. I mean, I've seen many athletes suffer through injuries, and like my own son, my youngest son, he wants to stop doing track and field. He doesn't want to do it anymore because he's suffered through at least 2 or 3 major injuries. But he's back on track, and I think he's showing some mental toughness to go on, and I think he'll see his day where he'll shine. I think I've met up on many athletes who have the abilities to kill, so to speak, but they're just not tough mentally, and sometimes they crack so easily under pressure. They crack based on their surroundings. They crack if they never had a proper breakfast this morning. There's so many things that cause them to crack. That's not making them into that good athlete. Even the recent World Cup, I just don't think Neymar from my favorite team, Brazil, is a mentally tough athlete. I mean, you can have a shootout and you're not going to take one of the first penalty kicks. I don't think he's tough. And I don't think Neymar has what it takes to lead Brazil to a World Cup because he's just not tough. And yeah, I don't think that it is all about being mentally tough. Even with less abilities or less talent or less technical abilities, as long as you're mentally tough, you can beat out some of these really good technical persons just by having that fortitude to push on.
All right, and now I'll put you on the spot a little bit now because we need to learn some more from Coach Bennett since we have him on the line. Can you give us about maybe 2 or 3 strategies that you have used in terms of trying to develop that mental toughness in your own athletes?
Wow. Boy, I probably don't have a list, but I can give a few scenarios. I go hard in training. I go at them very hard in training because I know that sometimes I'm not going to go hard at them at a track meet or at a championship. So I get at them in training to get the best out of them at a meet. I believe in training hard and competing very easily. And that's it from a coaching standpoint. You'll never hear me going hard at you at a track meet or at a championship, but I'll go hard at you in training. I'll even give you some time off for you to think about what is it that you really want, hoping that you'll get tough enough to come back with the right attitude. But I go hard. We train hard. We don't let up. I have to be very careful because I know this thing can go around the world. But yeah, I just think that we go hard. We go hard in training, and I think the tougher we are in training is the better we get out of them on the day of competition, because that's the day when we are most relaxed. We're most relaxed in competition, and the boys and the girls seem to be most relaxed when we're in competition. So the performances tend to be a lot better. But yeah, we drive hard in training. We get at them hard, and sometimes till you see tears, and tears sometimes mean that sometimes getting through to the athlete or to the sporting person. But yeah, let me just give you that one. I'll leave it at that one. But yeah, we go hard in training, just so that we can get them to understand what is required of them in competition. Sometimes when they think that they are ahead of everybody else in their own group, they tend to relax, and that's not enough. You bring up scenarios that you don't know where your competitor is and what he's doing or she's doing. So you strike a lot of, you poke a lot of energy and a lot of chords on the brain just to get them to understand that it's not just about at Hydel or at Calabar. It's about who your competitors are in Jamaica and even in the world. Just be knowledgeable of that. And yeah, I think we really go hard at them in training to get the best out of them.
Train hard, compete easy.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting idea. There's certainly no way that you can produce something in terms of performance level, not in terms of performance level, but in terms of execution that you've never trained to do. You know, the adrenaline of the sports arena might produce something a little bit more, maybe a 5 or 10% more than what you can produce while in training. But in terms of the execution, whatever you're capable of executing technically in training, that's it. There's not a whole lot more that's going to become available to you if you haven't trained hard. All right, so most certainly, if anybody wants to find out what is the secret to Coach Bennett's success, it is to train hard.
Yeah, it's train hard.
So the competitions are easy.
Yeah.
All right, Coach Bennett, thank you so much for your time. I know you're not a very big public person, but if someone were to want to reach out to you to learn a little bit more from you as a coach, or for whatever reason, how would they get a hold of you?
They can always email me, you know, Corey, Corey SG Bennett @gmail.com. Again, that's CoreysG Bennett BENNETT @gmail.com. I mean, you can feel free to reach out to me there. I'll be able to hopefully answer most of the questions or shed some light on anything that needs to be shed light on. But yeah, I'm easily available through email. I'm also on Instagram. I don't know my Instagram thing, but I think if you put in Corey Bennett or Corey SG Bennett on Instagram, you should be able to find me. I'm pretty new to Instagram, so yeah, you should be able to find me there as well. Or come down to Calabar one day, or come to Hydel one day, and you can find me there as well. Yeah.
Awesome, and I'm super easy to find. It's always King Leon at 876. In terms of the home or where you can find this podcast, it's at Coaching Excellence Podcast, YouTube, and you can find it wherever podcasts are found. Just look it up, Coaching Excellence Podcast. All right, thank you for your time, Coach Bennett. Hopefully at some point in the future, we can bring you back. We can bring some more.
Sure.
We thank you for the insights that you've shared today, and wish you all the best in your success at Hydel and Calabar.
No problem, Coach. Thanks for having me. Appreciate that.
Awesome.
Cool.